Hey guys, All Sports 83 supporting another video at you, and today is going to be episode 3 of my series on the future of NASCAR gaming. So we're going to talk about career modes today. It's a big part of the game, so we're going to jump right in. A lot to cover, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, hopefully you'll forgive me if it feels like I'm jumping around a lot in this video, but career mode has so many things to talk about. I'll do the best I can to streamline the conversation, but you guys can let me know what you think about all these different conversations in the comments section below. I've already touched on the needed improvements to the character customization part, so let's move on to how career mode could begin. I would think that it starts with a backstory of the character, and it should center on the success in some lower series that would catch the attention of those involved with different NASCAR development driver programs. This could be accomplished through a video clip, like an intro to your career would be some kind of video clip. This clip could be the tail end of a racing broadcast that highlights the character's championship season and the broadcast team talking about the bright future of the champion and how major racing series like NASCAR will come calling. The key is that this video seems real and would look realistic, like something you might see on a secondary sports program network like Fox Sports 2, something like that. After the intro video, the player is taken to a screen where he or she is asked to pick which manufacturer they wish to drive for. This would determine the driver development program and initial career path for your career. This is just a quick rendering I made as an example of what the screen could look like. As I stated in part 1 of the series, drivers don't just switch back and forth between manufacturers during their development. It's only after they make a name for themselves do contract offers come from different manufacturing teams. So in the early part of your career, only teams that drive or operate with the manufacturer you selected here on this screen would be offering you different contract options. Next is to decide which series you wish to start in. Yes, I think there should be options here, but again, I'm going for a more realistic pattern. Option 1 is the entry-level series, whether it's a dirt series or ARCA series or whatever. Choosing this series would provide you with a chance at a full season contract with a solid race team. This option wouldn't handicap you with subpar equipment. It would really just give you an opportunity to show your skill right away in comparison to the rest of the field. The next option is to jump right into the truck series. This option creates a little more of a challenge right off the bat because without proving yourself in the lower series, you shouldn't receive contract offers from the top tier team or teams within your driver development program. You would only receive partial contracts from, say, mid-level to low-level teams. I'd say partial because very few unproven drivers will land a full contract even in the truck series. Possibly you could split driving duties with another driver, existing or fiction. This would give you 10 to 12 races to earn a better contract in the series for the next season. Third, you could elect to jump straight to the Xfinity Series, but this option is more limited and probably the most challenging. Only 3 or 4 race contracts would come at this, maybe probably from lower tier teams, and that's probably about the only thing that should be on the table here. You should struggle to be competitive if this is your option, especially at tracks where equipment is more important, like speedways and super speedways. Now, there should be no opportunity to race in the cup level from the outset of your career, as that's just not realistic at all. Lastly, about this structure, at every point of your career, you should be able to race partial contracts at the lower series from the highest level. Only 4 or 5 races though. For instance, if you choose to try that Xfinity path right away, you should still be able to sign a 4 or 5 race deal with all of the lower series if you wish, helping to establish your reputation. This option should always be on the table regardless of where you are in your career. because that's something that's really in NASCAR. A lot of these Cup guys can go down and race 4 or 5 races in some of these lower series. Also, if you sign a partial schedule at any level, you should be able to choose which events and tracks you want to race. It should not be random. This goes for a partial contract, whether it's those short 5-race deals or even the longer partial contracts like those 10 to 12 races. This simply makes the career mode experience more fun, and it is based loosely on reality. Okay, so the details are set and it's time for the season to begin. My vision for the foundational structure of career mode is a weekly calendar of events. At the beginning of each week, you should work your way through each event scheduled day by day. Now, this is not new to NASCAR gaming, as we saw a structure similar to this in the mid-2000s from EA Sports. I really believe this concept needs to be reintroduced, as it was one of the most successful aspects of the career mode from those games. Again, this calendar schedule infused the game with realism, because a driver may have to hop out of an Xfinity car after qualifying and jump right into a truck for a truck race. This is how it needs to be in the NASCAR game as well. Now, only events that you are scheduled to participate in will appear on your to-do list. For instance, in this concept image, you can see that there is a Truck Series event on the week overview at the bottom, but it's not an event that you have to make a decision on because you're not scheduled to race that week or you're not involved in that series at all. Also, any event should have the option to skip it. Naturally, this will make the race more difficult, but this should be the player's choice. Okay, so let's see if we can tackle one of the major problems with really all sports games, and that is the quality of life, or the replayability. The issue is that sports games are somewhat repetitive by nature. Whatever the structure is, good or bad, eventually the game suffers a rinse and repeat type of feel. As a result, 704 Games needs to be creative on how to eliminate this problem as much as possible. For me, I think the answer could lie within the decision determines the outcome approach on and off the track. While it isn't new to sports games, it hasn't been utilized as much for NASCAR games. Sure, you can have rivals and friends in today's NASCAR games, but your decisions should determine a lot more than just whether or not drivers like you. There are so many parts to a NASCAR driver's life that creates his or her story. Everything from contact on the track to communication with the media will play a role in the series or the success of a driver. This should be evident in a NASCAR game as well. Let me give you some examples. We know that the F1 racing games have incorporated media interviews with some success, and NASCAR should do the same. Maybe if you finish in the top 3, you have a media obligation like in real life where there is a press conference for you to answer 2 or 3 questions. The answers you choose should shape your reputation, which could affect your ability to earn sponsors or contracts from certain teams. Let's say you've developed a bit of a bad boy reputation and you lose your sponsorship with Napa because they want a cleaner image. Maybe an edgier sponsor like Monster Energy doesn't mind your aggressive approach and signs you right away if you're good enough. Finally, the money you earn from racing and career mode has typically only been valuable if you want to start your own team, which I argue should still be a factor. But in my version, you can also use that money to donate to charities or something to that effect. This could help your reputation. The more or less you donate and with what frequency should contribute to your reputation. This could also be challenging in your ownership mode, as you would have to decide how much money you would want to donate to charity to help your reputation versus how much money you want to use on the team to improve your performance. The key and the point is that your career could go a variety of ways based on these decisions. Plus, you could restart your career and carve an entirely new path at any point, which improves the game's quality of life. So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the ability to adjust the race schedule in career mode after the first season. I have no problem with season 1 mirroring the real NASCAR schedule just because it's one of the identifying factors for each edition of the game. But as you've seen in the last several years, NASCAR is willing to make changes to the race schedule, big and small, from year to year. So I think the players should be able to do the same thing in these games. Next is a small discussion on the paint booth's relationship to career mode. Again, I'll save the details for the paint booth for another video, but there is some crossover here and I want to touch on it very quickly. Basically, I think that the full gambit of the paint booth should be opened up in career mode. Now, that I'm talking about your driver career, and I'm also talking about your career as an owner. So I think the paint booth should be part of the ownership career as well. What I mean is that a player should have the option to design his or her own car from scratch regardless of sponsorship. One thing I liked about a couple of the games from several years ago is that whatever your car looked like, that didn't matter. But if you signed a sponsor, you had to go back to the paint booth and apply that sponsor's decal somewhere on the car, or you wouldn't receive funding for the races until you did so. This makes perfect sense as it strikes a balance between giving the player customization control while mimicking the realism of how sponsorship works. The only key detail here is that you should be able to determine the size of the sponsor decal. Otherwise, you won't be able to properly incorporate it into your paint scheme. Again, this is an area of the game where the player can make the experience unique without taking away the realism of NASCAR. It's a perfect combination to make the game much better. Now, while we're on customization, I want to touch on some options for creating your own team. I'll start by saying that 704 Games has done a really nice job of laying some solid groundwork in this area of the career mode, and I think they should be commended for that. But, as you've guessed by now, I have some suggestions on how to take it to the next step. First, while you're building your team, as you become more successful and profitable, you should be able to expand your team to a 2-car team, and then a 3-car team, and then maybe max out at a 4-car team. Now, doing this would be similar to the driver side of career mode. You would need to attract sponsors and good drivers as you improve and make more money, and you need to do that for each individual team. Also, just like in the driver section of career mode, the drivers you hire could have an effect on your sponsorship. If you get a hothead driver, it could limit your sponsorship options just as much as the performance on the track. Lastly, on the team ownership, as you become more successful in your team ownership, I think there should be some opportunities to hire current drivers in the game, whether it's up-and-coming Xfinity or Truck Series drivers or a current veteran of the Cup Series. Having some fiction drivers is fine at first, but if you have a Cup team, there's no reason you should be hiring Billy Lugnut when there's a great pool of drivers like Justin Allgaier, Noah Gragson, or Chase Briscoe in those lower series. And that point is a great segue to my next thought. So, like the NFL or the NBA, or really any sports game, there is a silly season in NASCAR where you see some drivers switch teams or retire from racing altogether. This should be incorporated into the NASCAR Heat franchise as well. As drivers get older, maybe in their mid-50s, we should see them retiring, opening up their ride for other drivers. This could also be incorporated into the driver's side of career mode. Maybe that's how you get your top tier ride at Joe Gibbs Racing or Hendrick Motorsports. Anyway, the roster manipulation in sports games has been a staple and one of the more fun and interesting aspects of these games for many, many years. I think it's time for NASCAR games to catch up and implement this feature into the next era of racing games. Well, I'm running out of time, so I'll just summarize a few other quick things. I'll be talking about the race weekend concept in another video, but during the race intro and video clips similar to the start of the career, things should be said about the driver that correlates with the events on and off the track during the pre-race intros or the post-race interviews. It would be best if you could get the real set of like maybe FS1's team, including Shannon Spake and Jamie McMurray, to film these clips, or maybe the NBC crew of Jeff Burton, Dale Jr., and Steve Letarte. This would make it feel more legitimate. Also, you could maintain some interaction with other drivers, but also these video messages are really just tacky from the last couple of games. There's a reason these drivers race and don't act. I would get rid of those versions of communication. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want to take part in the conversation, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a good one.